Okay, so I was completely disappointed with the quality of the Loyal Subjects version of the Switchblade, so I took it apart and fixed it, added a couple of mods, and it's actually working really, really good now. So I don't know if this is anybody else's cup of tea. You may not want to do this. I will say that they did the same thing that they did with the vintage ones, where they put a little bit of glue right here, so you actually do have to break the plastic in order to get it apart. This one had a little bit of extra glue, so that actually caused a weakening where it started getting white right there. So that doesn't look all that great, but that was literally the only way to get it apart, was to pop this little chunk here. But what I did was I replaced this, the little weak plastic thing that sticks out there that's supposed to act as a spring that just wasn't doing anything, and I replaced it with an actual spring. So I 3D printed a little rectangle like this with a peg on it where a spring can fit, and that pressure fits up inside of this little thing, the lever here, and then there's a, if you can see it, there's a metal spring now that goes down and touches the bottom of the inside of the body. Now it actually acts as a spring really well. So the transformation is actually really, really clean now. The other problem I was having was these wings were not connecting back here to the tail. So anytime you would barely touch it, they would just come up, they would come loose. And I've heard that that's a really common problem with these. The problem with that was the spring that they used for this mechanism, which is slightly different than the vintage one. I'll include some pictures here. Is weak, so it's not holding enough pressure. Conversely, this wing here was coming out kind of sloppy and sagging, and it was kind of staying vertical. The spring on this is actually also weak. So I'll show you what I did to fix that. I don't want to take it apart again, but essentially I replaced the spring here with a slightly bigger one. It's actually a leftover part of the spring that I used for this. It's just a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. And then for the spring here, on the vintage ones, it connects to the wings all the way back to this thing. But on the new one, it's just a loop. It loops around this screw post and back. And then this is a separate piece with its own little spring here. So it's actually easier to put together. It doesn't just explode when you take it apart, because they actually work kind of smart. They put in another little bracket that holds the skids together when you take it apart. And like I said, the spring for the wings just kind of does a U shape, and it's being held by the post where the screw goes here. So I tightened that up by just giving it a few turns. It had a loop through the hole, and as you kind of rotate it, it threads that spring through the hole a little further. And I did about 4 or 5 wraps on each end to kind of shorten that length of that spring, which made it tighter. And now the action is much stronger, much more solid. It comes all the way out every time. And if you'll watch here, you can see how well this clips in. Yeah, did you hear that? So that's literally, it's really clicked in. I mean, you can push on it as hard as you want. It's not coming loose. Same thing with this side. Hear the audible click? I mean, it's in there. And then the same thing with this. Still not perfect. This was complete garbage, but at least it's hooking in now with the spring. And if you touch this little button here now, the spring works really well. So that spring in there. So the wing action is actually a lot more solid now that I've got both this spring and this spring tightened up. So let me show you. Yeah, those come out super fast and solid. So all in all, way better than it was. And all it was just tightening the spring here and tightening the spring here, and then actually fixing this and making this into a spring. So we We shouldn't have to do this kind of crap. This is ridiculous. But there is a way to fix it. I don't know if anybody else wants to kind of risk doing this kind of damage to it. I was fine doing it because I actually complained to the Big Bad Toy Store about the problem, and they just issued me a store credit so I can get a new one that hopefully doesn't have the same problems as this one did, which kind of made me relax a little bit about taking it apart and potentially breaking it. But yeah, so it is fixable if you want to put a little bit of effort into it. You might risk doing something like this if you're not careful, because depending on how much glue. This one didn't have as much glue on it, so it was totally fine. It popped right off. This one was a pain in the ass to kind of get separated. I had to kind of work a hobby knife in there to try to saw that glue spot apart, and it still weakened the plastic because the plastic is thinner and cheaper. But I might put a custom decal on it or something to cover it up. So I think it's salvageable. But anyway, there you go. Hope this helps.